It's a great pleasure and honor today to be able to introduce an extreme panel of industry leaders who bring to fore a technology that, needless to say, have saved millions of lives. It wouldn't be an exaggeration, and especially coming from the part of the country, the world that I am in, we are extremely grateful to this innovation and the technology that has come our way and is helping lives every day as we stand here and speak. So great pleasure to introduce, sitting next to me, to my left, Vincent Forlenza, Chairman and CEO of Becton Dickinson, BD for short. And next to him, Mike Mahoney, the President and CEO, Boston Scientific Corporation. And then to the extreme left, Mr. Gary Pruden, the worldwide chairman of the Global Surgery Group of Johnson & Johnson. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for giving us your time as we proceed to address and ask some of the very important issues in the industry today, which is about the future of MedTech and discussing tomorrow's challenges and opportunities. To begin with, if you look out in the horizon, what do you see, gentlemen, as the biggest change in the next 3 to 5 years when it comes to healthcare delivery? What do these changes mean to our industry and to your company? Sure. And as a follow-up question, what advice would you give to companies, especially the early stage companies, and as they try to prepare for these changes for the future?
Want me to kick it off? Go ahead. So I'll kick it off, and good morning, everyone. So looking at the landscape, I'd say the biggest change that we see is the move from systems that are based on volume to systems that are based on value and really on understanding, population effects in terms of how payment is going to be done. So population-based systems, so capitated systems. And within that, the quality measures that are being imposed. And of course, this is front and center in the US with healthcare reform. And so our customers are under tremendous pressure to change, and they're responding to that by consolidating, they're responding to that by buying physician practices, rethinking what their processes are. And so my first thought is we have to be helping them through that change, which is very, very dramatic, whether it's in the US or in healthcare systems around the globe.
Thank you. Mike.
Can you hear me okay? Good morning. Good afternoon, everyone. Maybe just a couple add-ons to Vince's comments. We also live in a kind of a interesting time where there's the trend that Vince articulated, and also we work in a fee-for-service model today. And so being able to straddle both of those at the same time and deliver innovation while we're preparing for the future is interesting. It's a great opportunity for us. In terms of maybe advice for other companies, we certainly would enjoy others' advice as well. But I think one is purely the need for low cost. Low cost solutions is really critical, even more so than it has been in the past. And anything we can do, as Vince said, with the trend of population health management, to demonstrate real economic savings. So beyond the clinical impact of the product, as a startup company or a company that is bringing innovation to market, really showing the economic value or economic savings is even more and more critical now than it used to be.
Thank you for that. So all of you run big corporations with employees, multiple stakeholders, and frequently you do meet with policymakers. What is it that you should be, or for that matter, we should be doing to educate policymakers and other stakeholders about the value of technology, about the advances and the implications also of medical technology? What is it that we should all be doing?
I think I'll start with the concept of value, right? Because I think Vince talked about it and Mike talked about it. We've been doing some work and looking at how the determination of value has started to shift a little bit. And there's some fundamental work that was done as the basis for the ACA, which was called the triple aim, which is improving the quality of care, improving patient satisfaction, and improving and helping to lower costs to the system. When you talk to, I think, especially governments and payers globally, not just in the US, those three things resonate really well on their agenda. I think there's a little bit too much focus on the cost element, quite frankly, and we're starting to lose a little bit focus on quality, because I think when you talk to most countries around the world and governments, you know, the unmet needs are still there. Access to care is definitely growing, but I think that technology can play a role in all three of those things in terms of improving quality, improving the patient satisfaction, and helping to reduce some of the systems costs overall. So I think, Rupam, changing the dialogue from just being, gee, you guys need to bring more de-featured products to market at a lower cost, which, by the way, I think that's a losing proposition, to we can bring innovation which can improve quality of outcomes, solve unmet needs, improve the patient satisfaction. Yes, it can have an entire system effect to helping lower overall costs for their healthcare environment.
Absolutely.
So getting very tactical about this, I think we have a great story to tell, and we have to tell it every single day. And this starts locally. All of us, you know, have local congressmen that we can reach out to. We're an industry with over a $40 billion, you know, favorable trade balance. We're an industry that pays about twice the national average. You know, our local congressmen love to come out and see the technologies and understand what we're working on and the impact we're going to have on healthcare. And, you know, I think it's incumbent upon all of us to reach out to the other stakeholders, to bring them in and educate them. I also think it's important that we educate our own associates so they can carry the message out too. I don't know if we've done a great job of that, probably done an okay job, but I think there's a lot more than we can do in that regard.
Thank you, and which brings us to the next question. The United States, Europe, Japan has been your traditional large markets, but as we are seeing explosive growth in some of the emerging markets like India, China, of course, Brazil, and since you cannot be everywhere at the same time with equal amount of focus, how do you determine the balance between focusing, and how do you focus your energies with the balance between the emerging opportunities in these markets and the continuing business that needs a different kind of and greater amount of focus today? And also the impact on the education levels that is there for here in the developed markets, which is all about niche technology, and vis-a-vis the recently emerging markets, which is to catch up to even realize the value of technology for that matter. How do you strike that balance?
Great question. I think we have to strike the balance. You said U.S. and Europe and Japan for many large companies is oftentimes you know, big percent of their sales, but maybe not growing the fastest. Yeah. And so at Boston Scientific, the emerging markets are growing 20%. And so those developed markets are critical to us, and they provide so much capital for us to invest in the company, but there's so much faster growth in the emerging markets. And so we don't deploy, we prioritize our emerging markets, and you said a couple of them, but we don't treat each one the same. So we really look at the opportunities, what the regulatory landscape is. We look for great local talent, but we disproportionately invest in those emerging markets that provide longer-term growth. Through local talent, through building local capabilities and training and R&D, through creating local access with the regulators in the countries. But we go through a process where you prioritize based on the opportunity in those markets.
Absolutely.
I think, Rupam, the other thing you have to do is we really need to look at the world through a global lens. If you think about growth of access to care in the emerging markets, which is growing, the infrastructure is starting to get better. And also, the unmet needs are probably the greatest in those emerging and what I call the pre-emerging markets, which is kind of the next phase. You look at, for instance, the population in Southeast Asia is huge.
Absolutely.
Yet it's a very underserved population. And are there opportunities where our innovation can play a role, right, in helping to drive up the access to care and improve the standard of care in those markets? So I think you've got to put a longer-term view hat on. You got to pace it with the infrastructure development in those countries. But it's good to have a forward-leaning presence in those markets so that as it grows, your business can grow.
Thank you.
I would add to that, there's compliance issues as well. One has to be very cognizant of, can you do business the right way in that country, in that geography? and make sure that you can build an organization that is complying with all the laws there and the U.S. laws. And that's a fundamental thing that you have to have in place as you expand into these marketplaces. And I would agree with the statements made by both of my colleagues, but in addition, sometimes there are really important healthcare needs that just have to be addressed, and you have to find business models to attack them. For us, of course, that has been HIV, tuberculosis, so we actually do quite a bit in Africa. They're not large markets for us, maybe $150 million in sales for BD, but we think we can have an outsized impact on what's happening on the ground. And so then it's incumbent upon us, from kind of a shared value perspective, to see how we can participate.
And Gary, you talked about affordability. Mike, you talked about the affordability aspect of this. Coming to the United States, just a corollary of the word, what are your impressions on the implementation and the impact of the Affordable Health Care Act? And what do you expect the healthcare landscape in the U.S. to look like?
How much time do we have?
How do I get this?
Yes.
I guess the first impressions
Guys
will
at committee
be...
know the answer.
Yes.
And what do you expect the healthcare landscape in the U.S. to look like, given that in the next 5 to 10 years? And what will this landscape mean for the medical technology industry?
Say ditto.
The impact of the, you know, I guess a couple things. You know, the good side, we see more insured patients. So potentially there could be some upside in volume and more patients that are covered. And I think Vince covered a lot of the trends as you look 5 to 10 years out, at least in the U.S., more on a kind of population health management. You have employees, large employees have more high deductible plans, which will drive more engagement by employees in their health. You have, you know, massive consolidation of hospital systems that are oftentimes driving vendor consolidation. Payers becoming hospitals, hospitals becoming payers. So there's lots of shifts there. And so I think, you know, for medical device companies, innovation is still a critical aspect of it, whether it be, you know, portfolio innovation where you're demonstrating real clinical benefit, whether it's commercial innovation and different models to potentially reduce SG&A, but to attract customers, and innovation with new partners that may have not been a traditional med device partner to go with those trends of helping hospitals keep patients out, like in heart failure. How can you help reduce down heart failure readmissions and partner with more M-Health companies or data analytics companies to provide those types of capabilities to hospitals? So it's other partnering beyond what we've done traditionally to take advantage of that opportunity.
Thank you.
I think the other thing, Rupam, was what Ed and Mike said is we've probably seen, at least in medical device, our costs have gone up.
Yep.
We probably haven't seen the volume that we thought we were going to see so far, although access to care is growing. And I think that the other thing that we've seen is the big trend is the pressure on our customers. You know, I think they're getting some relief in terms of their donut hole of the uninsured to a certain degree, but the cost pressures on them are tremendous right now in the U.S.
Thank you for that. And to Vince, starting with you, tell us about the history of BD. And what is the new and current BD looks like and wants to be in the future?
That's a really interesting question. The company's 117 years old, so I'm not going to cover all the history with you. That might take a while. So I'll focus on the present. You know, it was our belief that BD had to become a provider more of healthcare solutions than narrowly focused on its products. And we started that work a couple of years ago, moving to expand our portfolio into adjacent pieces that really synergize with what we already had and would be more impactful for customers. Laboratory automation and microbiology was a good example when we purchased Keystra. Of course, the big news this week was the acquisition of CareFusion, which really builds an end-to-end provider in the medication management space for us, where we can help hospitals re-engineer their process, take cost out, and at the same time improve care. Very, very exciting approach for us and for CareFusion. And it's that kind of really attacking the fundamental processes within the hospital that we saw as being very, very important. And that's kind of the core thrust of BD at this point in time. And so we see a medication management company. We see continuing to build on the life science side of the company, but always with that in mind, focused on significant unmet customer needs as we go forward.
Mike, you run a company that has significantly evolved and grown globally. And yet Boston Scientific is a young company and continues to evolve. So what's next for Boston Scientific? What do you see as your upcoming challenges and opportunities?
Our upcoming challenges and opportunities. I'm an Irish optimist, so I usually see more opportunities than challenges, but I'll lead with that. I think it's an exciting time. You asked about where healthcare will be 5 or 10 years, and new leaders and new emerging models will come out of that. So I think it's a ripe time for innovative thinking. And so when I think about our company, first thing I always think about really is our people and the engagement of our people. And you know, how proud are they of the company and our kind of our aspiration going forward. And we're really fortunate. We have a tagline that talks about advancing science for life, and we play in amazing areas like many of you do, and helping patients with Parkinson's disease and depression and heart failure and highly motivating fields. And so we want to really empower our employees to continue to advance innovation in that area. We think we have a lot of unique opportunities financially to do well. And also a lot of things that Vince was saying, impact patients globally. I was in this little town, not little, 4 million people in Belém, Brazil. There's like 4 cath labs there. And so beyond you know, the performance trends that excite us and advancing in these interesting spaces is really helping drive this business globally.
Absolutely.
On challenges, I don't know, do you want me to touch on the challenges? I think people know them. We face pricing pressure. We face you know, a challenging regulatory burden. We're in our 3rd panel right now as we speak with our Watchman product. So I don't want any updates on that. But you know, we face a lot of challenges that many of our peers group do, but there's a lot of new opportunities with the changing landscape that innovative employees will help us figure out.
Sure. Thank you, Mike. Gary, as things are changing, some things always remain the same. With the credo, attention to the needs, unmet needs of patients, attention to physicians, surgeons, nurses, and that drives success. And J&J is perhaps the most diverse and the most storied company in our industry. And recently, J&J, in the news, we heard about the establishments of many innovation centers globally. And what are these centers, and how do early-stage medical companies and others interface with them?
So yeah, great question. It is it's an enterprise strategy for Johnson & Johnson, and we've placed centers now in London, Boston, California. We're just opening our center in Shanghai and a satellite office in Israel. And the objective is, how do we engage with early-stage companies, universities, across our portfolio of pharmaceutical, medical device, and consumer to partner, place equity positions, license, acquire new technologies at an early stage. So we've put a lot of effort. Initially, it was 100% dedicated to pharmaceutical. Now it's been more focused on medical device, and then last will probably be consumer in terms of its focus. But we're building our capability globally because you know, at the end of the day, we believe that our sustainable competitive advantage is innovation, right? That's what was made our industry great. That's what made a lot of our businesses really thrive. And either you have innovation or you don't. If you don't have innovation, it's a long road ahead. If you do, life is a lot better, and I think we are looking for ways to innovate in our approach to supporting it, engaging it, taking risks on innovation in different ways, and having fully dedicated resources around the world that are very much focused on that is one of our efforts in that manner.
Thank you, Gary. I was told that the number of product recalls in the period 2012-13 has grown 100% compared to a 2-year period prior to that. And I know that there has been a tremendous focus on quality in our industry. What do you attribute these numbers to, and what can the industry and the FDA be doing together to address this trend? Vince, you've been known to say that our industry has been doing many good things to celebrate, including the AdvaMed and AdvaMed DX board roles.
Yes.
Perhaps you can discuss the way that AdvaMed, what AdvaMed is doing, and the transitional pathway, the 21st century cures legislation, etc.
Okay.
And Congressman Upton mentioned this morning at the breakfast and other initiatives.
So I haven't seen any study that would indicate reasons why, the recall rate has gone up. So anything I'm saying is without data. I do think that the bar is being raised in terms of the quality requirements. And whether or not it's by the FDA or by our customer base, we have to respond to that. And I think it's extremely important that we do that. And there's a lot of complex products out there. So I think you have all of those factors coming together. Now, in terms of working with the FDA, in my role as chairman of AdvaMed DX, and now in terms of chairman-elect of AdvaMed, I think the good news is that we have built a relationship with the FDA that is one that's positive, that is working together now, that was not in place before the MDUFA negotiations. And that has become a springboard for us to work together. Starting on the DX side, we've been working for several years on an accelerated pathway for new biomarkers to come to market. I won't go through all the details of that, but we're just about to the finish line to have that in place. And of course, then there's the initiative more broadly for the industry on breakthrough technology and a breakthrough pathway, which is going to include both the FDA and CMS. So when you have breakthrough products, they're prioritized at the FDA. There's now a broader definition of breakthrough technology that's being discussed, and that you will get coverage from CMS for 5 years. And there's many more dimensions to this. It's under discussion. I can tell you from working with Janet Trunzo and the people at the FDA, they're in problem-solving mode right now, saying, how do we get this done, and how do we get to the finish line? It's going to be a lot more work, but I am very much encouraged with what's starting to happen.
Thank you, Vince.
I think, Rupam, the other thing I'd add to Vince's point is I think really around the world, the global regulatory standards are going up. SFDA is starting to look more like FDA these days, right, in terms of what they're asking for and what they want. And I think, by the way, it's not just them. It's Invisa, it's BSI, it's all of them are starting to say, wait a minute, let's talk about how we're going to raise standards. So I think whether the outcome input is directly proportional to the output, I don't know, but certainly I'd say that we should be prepared that global regulatory standards are going up around the world, and it will get more difficult as opposed to less difficult.
Sure. And from personal experience, I can tell that all of your companies definitely do not treat the emerging markets or any other market as any different from the highly regulated markets. We have been fortunately privy to the same high standards of quality that is followed for most of the US big corporations, even if you're addressing an unmet low-cost need in the country. So I think that's very applaudable, and it talks of the high standard that this industry also carries. Doing credence to the industry that I primarily belong to, let's talk about the growth and integration of digital and other technologies and their impact on healthcare delivery, and especially so getting close to the devices and the therapeutic product itself. Mike, what do you see as opportunities that we have here because of this?
See, it's interesting that we looked at a survey. I think there's like 100,000 different mobile apps that have been created to help all of us. And I still ride on the boarding treadmill, and doing sit-ups. So all these new applications aren't helping me yet, but there's plenty of them out there. I think it's a great opportunity, similar to where the healthcare market is going in the future. When you look at the landscape here, maybe more tactically in the short term, I think our company and many of you look at mHealth and all the innovation there to help market their products, whether it be helping excellent patient-type websites interactive with social media and referrals to help generate awareness to applications to help patients post-procedure to reduce complications or infection rates or help them out of the hospital, to much more advanced strategic partnerships. We just have a recent partnership with Optum Health. We work closely with Accenture on trying to get after, with our devices and with IT applications in the area of heart failure. And how do you provide analytics and reporting back to hospitals that are meaningful to them, help them manage their patients more effectively? So I think that IT applications and mHealth really will be part of our portfolio and our solutions. And again, these are things that Boston Scientific won't necessarily do organically within the company. It'll be partnerships and alliances that we create and others will create. And I think capability-wise, and I've been in med device for a while now, it's really critical for us to surround ourselves with leaders in our teams who really thrive on this opportunity and are very comfortable in it.
Thank you for that. Would you like to add anything, Gary, to this, or Vince?
So as we're thinking about this transition from fee-to-service to really a system where you're managing not just the patient, but the well person, and the person at home with chronic disease, and I think this is part of where Mike was going, which is this connectivity is going to be incredibly important, whether it's around medication management or congestive heart failure. And we can see providers thinking about how are they going to build that connectivity. So I think this idea of mobile health is going to be important. The companies in AdvaMed think it's going to be important. We're starting a working group on this, and if you're interested, you should get involved. We'd like to get some real critical mass and new thinking around this. Think about what Google is doing in health now and other IT companies. All of this could change the landscape of the industry, and we want to start thinking about this as an industry together. What are the standards we need? Where's this whole thing going to go? It's going to be very exciting.
I think the one thing around all of this that will probably unlock it and bring it together is integrated healthcare IT. Yep. Yes. You know, I was out in Seoul last week in Korea, and I went to a hospital that it's probably the most advanced I've ever seen, where the physicians all have iPads. They pull up, you know, essentially a dashboard on every patient. All the charts are integrated, the electronic medical record. They have 400 flash drives of patient educations they can send to the patient's mobile phone. And if you think about that future with wearable technology and what we can do for those patients with heart failure or others, it becomes very much a game changer. So I think as opposed to potentially one-off applications, integrated applications, may be an interesting way for the future as that becomes more progressive beyond just certain countries. And I think Korea is doing a lot of work around that. That may be a new opportunity, I think, for us.
And with the growing advent of technology that's going to come not just in the therapy of your products with better features, better care, but also with now technology interlaced and overlaying on top of it, with having big data systems and huge analytics guiding companies, care providers, as you mentioned. So the efforts to harmonize global medical technology regulations have been underway and for many years, but I'm not very sure whether we have seen any progress. What have you experienced so far? And do you have confidence in the global harmonization, especially in the light of more complexity coming in because of technology and healthcare delivery?
God, I hope so. I'm looking at my quality team that's sitting out in the audience in particular, and you know, at any given point in time, and listen, I've said this to the commissioner, in other words, we can go to one of my global facilities, I'm sure this is true for a lot of companies, they might get 24 inspections, 36 in a year. You know, it's 1 week it's BSI, the following week it's Anvisa, the third week it's FDA, the fourth week, and everyone's shaking their heads, I'm watching them. So, you know, it's just not terribly efficient, and I know there's a single audit strategy as part of the pillars of the FDA plan to get to that approach, but God, that would be a more effective and efficient way, and maybe allow our businesses to harmonize kind of standards and expectations, allow our supply chain to be more effective and efficient, as opposed to, you know, gee, who's showing up next week for an audit? So I think there are opportunities there, but I don't know we're quite there yet.
Anything to add, Vince, from your side? Mike?
I think
We're not
I
there
would
yet.
agree with what, we're just not there, and we see, I think, more regulation, not harmonization of regulation. So there's a lot of work to be done.
Well, thank you very much for your comments today, and we are all supremely confident that technology is going to evolve. We're going to have more and more intelligent products. We're going to have more and more connected systems driving fantastic value to patients worldwide. And speaking as an engineer, we think and we are enamored by the technology at first, but later on, as we be in this industry, we truly realize the value it brings to lives. And I can vouch for myself and for almost everybody in this audience that how they continue to touch the life of our parents, of our dear ones, of our children, and people that we know. So it's been a tremendous journey, and this journey will continue. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, everybody in the industry, for continuing to this. And thank you, this esteemed panel, for sharing your comments with us today. Thank you.
Good luck.